Book Festival. Good afternoon. My name is Brownie, and I'm a law enforcement professional. And I'm going to talk about two things that people rarely want to talk about. One is interacting with law enforcement, i.e. police officers, and the other one is gun safety. I wrote two books, and I have two books here in the emerging author tent. The first one is called Rules of Engagemnt, Mending Citizen and Police Interactions. Now, why do we need this book? As we know, there have been a lot of negative interactions with law enforcement. And I believe that there's enough blame to go around. There's blame for the police in their lack of training, interactions, and communication with the citizens. And I believe that there's also a lack of education among the citizens in the United States. Law enforcement and policing is a very difficult job. As you know, it's very dangerous. We encounter people from day to day and have no idea who we're encountering. This book will help the average citizen to understand why police officers do what they do and when you should be able to complain when you're not getting the service that you believe you should be. Communication with law enforcement officers is paramount. And when we don't know how to communicate with law enforcement officers, things turn bad, and they turn bad quickly. Law enforcement officers should be able to de-escalate, but at some point it takes both parties to make that work. You have a police officer that is attempting to de-escalate a situation, but you have a citizen who continues to get riled up. At that point, something else has to happen. The officer has done all that they can do in order to de-escalate that situation. It has to be, both parties have to be involved in effective communication to make a law enforcement citizen interaction positive. Knowing the rules of engaging with law enforcement officers is a big help. For example, knowing most of the interactions that people have with law enforcement officers come at a traffic stop. But there are also instances where you may call a law enforcement officer to your home, or you may be at a party where a law enforcement officer arrives. These are all situations that we need to understand how to communicate and how to interact with those police officers. And please understand that I'm not saying that those police officers don't need to know how to interact with us as citizens. But we also need to understand why they do what they do, why they ask us the questions that they ask. The first thing a police officer needs to get when they arrive on the scene is compliance. They need to control the scene. And so in controlling that scene, sometimes law enforcement officers get out of hand. They're rude, and they're not asking you, please ma'am, please sir, please have a seat. They may come in and say, hey, I need you to sit down right here. And you're like, this is my house and you can't tell me what to do. But that's going to be a problem because we're taught to command and control the scene upon our arrival. So, when, say for instance at a traffic stop, you get pulled over, again, command and control the scene. You get pulled over, the officer should tell you why you're being stopped. But if they don't, guess what? You have the right to ask. Some officers do, some officers don't. But the thing is not to get upset and not to provoke that traffic stop from going any further than it should. A lot of times I had a young lady say, well, the officer pulled me over and I cracked my window, but the officer told me I had to let the window all the way down. So my question to them was, why not let the window all the way down? And so she said, well, it's my right. No, it's not your right. When an officer pulls you over, you've been seized. So at that time, the officer is in control. So if the officer asks you to let the window down, just let the window down. Because further tension, when you raise the window a crack, guess what? You now tick the officer off. So now, officers have discretion. So you think that officer's going to let you off with a warning? No. Right? So the thing is to make these interactions as short as possible and to communicate effectively. Now, what happens when we don't get what we want? Guess what? We need to complain. We need to write effective complaints on these officers because those complaints go into that officer's file. And if we're not complaining to the right people, if we're not putting it in writing, guess what? It didn't happen. And we talk about why is this officer still on the street? That's why. And we get to our communities and we complain about the same officer, but nobody's putting it in writing. So we have to put those complaints in writing. Like I said, this book has a lot of good information. It's written from a law enforcement officer's perspective. I have 17 years of law enforcement experience. I've been an instructor, I've been a supervisor, I've been a detective. I've pretty much done everything in a law enforcement department with the exception of being the chief. Okay, so I have a little bit of experience, and I used my experience to write this book. In my opinion, it's very good, and I think everyone should get a copy of it. Again, it's Rules of Engagemnt, Mending Citizen Police Interactions. Now, my second book is one that I'm very passionate about. I'm very passionate about children, and I don't know if everybody realizes it, but in Georgia, just this year there have been 14 accidental shootings by children. 14. 9 kids have died and 5 have been injured due to firearms. And so the book that I wrote is to help parents talk to their kids about the dangers of firearms. A lot of times we're not discussing with our kids about how dangerous firearms are. We just kind of put it to the side and say, oh Johnny, don't touch that gun, it's fine, don't touch it. And so we expected the kids to do that, but that's not in their nature. They're very inquisitive, and as soon as you turn your back, they're going to pick that gun up, and they're going to play with it. I do a lot of seminars, do a lot of community service where we set up a table. And then when we set up that table, we use 2 what are called glue guns. Now these are just block plastic. They have no movable parts. They are glue. They're not even close to looking real. It's amazing how many kids come up to that table and ask me, is this real? They don't know. They don't know the difference between a real gun and a toy. So when they pick your gun up at home, they believe that they're picking up a toy. And if we don't discuss with them, at least this is the trigger, it moves, and when it moves, a bullet comes out and you can kill yourself. It has to be that type of conversation. And I understand as parents, we don't want to have that conversation with our children. It's very difficult, but that's the reason that I wrote the book. The book is about 3 kids. They find a firearm on their way to school. They meet the police officer. The police officer introduces them to this bear. The bear then teaches them about the dangers of firearms. The book it's got good reviews. Doctors for Responsible Gun Use has written a very, very good review on Amazon. I highly recommend it. Like I said, the book is sold on Amazon for $10. It's sold here for $8. This book is sold on Amazon for $16. It's sold here for $12. I highly recommend both of them. If you have young adults who have problems with the police, this is the book for them. If you got kids that have just gone off to college, this is the book for them. I am a firm believer in keeping everybody safe, and I think knowledge is power, and this book is the knowledge that we need. This other book, I believe we got to do something about all these kids killing themselves with these guns. This is the book to get. If you don't have kids and you have guns and kids come to your house, just have this book with them. 14 kids in Georgia, over 100 in the United States. These accidental shootings cross racial lines, socioeconomic lines, religious lines. All types of kids are dying, and we have to do something about it. My name is Bridget Brown. I write under the name B.L. Brown. I would hope that you would take one of these books home, or both, home with you. Thank you so much, and enjoy the Decatur Book Festival.